Welcome to our very first full podcast episode. This is The Deep Dig, a sports pod brought to you by Drew and...
What's up? I'm D.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be very 49ers focused podcast, but really covering football all around the league. And I think we should just jump right into it. What do you think?
Let's roll it, baby.
Okay, last week we did a video covering Deshaun Watson and all his all of his cases and his lawyer coming out and saying that what he was doing was not illegal. I mean, hearsay. How is that irrelevant? Now Deshaun Watson apparently has settled 20 of his 24 cases. We don't know how this is going to affect his suspension, how this is going to affect him legally going forward, because there's still 4 cases that need to be settled. What is your take immediately going off of him settling those cases?
I think that, one, the Browns probably pushed him to settle as many of these cases as possible because the longer that he's in the headlines, the worse the Browns organization looks. And the more that they keep bringing up this 230, that's like the amount of millions that he is guaranteed. So it just makes them look, on the whole, just horrible. So I think he was pushed to, hey, let's close this out. Let's not do this. So that. And then I'm thinking, what is the NFL going to do? That's a huge question mark moving forward.
Yeah, I think if he was going to do this, settle out of court, he should have just did this from the beginning. This is what like rich, famous people do. They mess up and then they settle out of court so they don't have to deal with that PR blowback. But he was doing this to like make a point that he's innocent, he did nothing wrong, so he was fighting it. Okay, like really test your innocence against the jury and let the court of public opinion run its course. But if you were going to settle like this, you should have just did it from the get-go and probably be playing for the Browns right now in week 1.
I don't know about that. But
I'm not saying he's innocent or saying
no.
I'm saying what he did was wrong, but the way you handle things legally or in business is you just settle. Like he had the chance to settle.
He was hard stance that he was not going to settle out of court. He had said from the very beginning that he wasn't going to do it, that he was like going to prove his innocence. And I think he was pushed to, hey, like, let's make this go away as fucking quickly as possible. I seen this meme where, you ever seen that movie Identity Theft with Jason Bateman, where she's like says something and he's like, the fuck you are. I seen someone put that as like, Deshaun, I'm gonna fight this till the end, and the Browns are like, the fuck you are. I think that's what happened.
Hey, thanks for clicking on this video and watching this far. Sorry to interrupt, but just want to let you know if you could like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, it would really help us out. All right, thanks. Now, here's us again. Well, yeah, of course they're pushing him to settle. He's being really immature about this. Like, he's thinking that he's just gonna go through these and somehow not get suspended and play, or get suspended like 4 to 6 games and play and come back, be a top 10 quarterback and lead in the playoffs. I hope like I don't eat my words and that happens. But I did see that the NFL recommended that Deshaun be suspended indefinitely with a minimum of a year. So he could more than likely miss all of next season.
I think bare minimum, that's like what needs to happen. And when you say like, hey, they recommended, I know when you brought this up to me before, I was like, what are you talking about? It's the NFL's call. But as you explained, it's actually a third party arbitrator that is going to decide.
So did you want me to like kind of break that down?
Go ahead and break it down. I was like, what the hell?
I watched Rap Sheet on McAfee show try to break this down to McAfee, and McAfee was just not getting it. And I think it made me more confused after, because I think Rap Sheet didn't know. Well, he even said specifically he doesn't fully know until they get to certain points what's going to happen. Yeah. But the gist of it is there is Deshaun's camp and there is the NFL's camp. and they elected a third party arbitrator who will pass the punishment, who will decide the suspension. The NFL and Deshaun's camp will both recommend what they think should happen. Then the arbitrator gives the punishment. Once that happens, the NFL can appeal and ask for more, and Deshaun's camp can appeal and ask for less. And then they reevaluate and they give the punishment again. So when the news breaks and the punishment is given out, it's not over. There's still appeals process that everyone has to go through. But at the end of the day, it still is Roger Goodell's call. Even though he assigned a third party, he could still just say, okay, no, he's suspended a year.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think a year is going to be the bare minimum he gets. I think, again, I watched someone break it down, and they're like, are you really, like, even if he got one game for every case that he has, that's 24 games. You know what I mean? And it sounds ridiculous that these allegations would only warrant a 1-game suspension per allegation.
And, like, what do you think they're leaning towards more? Like, the NFL wanting to protect and defend Deshaun, or the NFL wanting to punish Deshaun for making them look bad? I think
punish him. You can't drag the shield, bro.
I think when you disrespect the shield like that, even though, come on, like, the owners have done some pretty bad things, but when the players disrespect the shield like that and bring bad publicity, they really want to crack down and show that they have the authority to punish these players.
And like 90% of the NFL, they're the like cream of the crop. Like, no matter what profession they were to go into, they are awesome people. It's like these few, and Deshaun is like an outlier case of what they represent, you know? And so it's like, yeah, they want to make an example of Deshaun and they want him to be punished. I think, you know what I mean? Just like anybody else.
Yeah, I think this is a guy that definitely got carried away. I mean, didn't you said the Arian Foster thing where Arian Foster had about 3 masseuses his whole career?
Yeah, so Arian Foster did an interview recently. He was actually talking about it and why it makes sense to keep a masseuse. He said that as an athlete, you don't want to be changing masseuses because when you have one person constantly doing it, they know the ins and outs of your body. And it's just like a tune-up. Oh, okay, well, last week we worked on this, or I know that throughout the season, you actually have this problem going on. So it doesn't make sense that he would have all these different masseuses. And he called it weird.
Definitely a weird situation. I mean, I'm kind of I was leaning towards a year suspension, but now I think I'm leaning towards maybe 2. Like, that sounds like it's in the realm of possibility to me now.
I think the NFL could just slow play it, do indefinite, and then, hey, what are we thinking? Like, just updates. What are we thinking? You know? But it has to come soon, because are you really going to roll this guy out during preseason in a month?
Yeah, and just settling these cases, just because you're settling out of court doesn't mean you're guilty or not guilty. And that doesn't mean that you avoid punishment. You're still going to get suspended even though you settled out because something was up, you did something, and you're giving bad publicity to players. And Goodell's going to feel that way. The NFL's going to feel that way. I think the NFLPA should feel that way. I wouldn't, if I was on the Browns, I think to each other, when Deshaun's not around, they're thinking like, what did they get us into? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't like Baker, but I don't think they like Deshaun, even though he's a better player. I don't know, maybe because he's good, they'll like him, but I would not like him on my team.
I mean, yeah, they really jumped the shark on this one, especially them paying out that contract.
That's just the arrogance of the Browns to give him this money and think he's going to be back in 4, 5, 6 games. We're going to go to the playoffs and we're going to, have a top 5 quarterback. Like, smooth sailing from here. No, like, it's all coming crashing down and they're trying anything to reel it back in. But going from a Browns quarterback who might not play this year. How about a 49ers quarterback who's trying to play this year? Jimmy G. They announced that he's going to start ramping up his throwing in the next coming weeks. And now there's talk of, if Deshaun doesn't play, maybe Jimmy goes to the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Jimmy G beats out Jacoby before. You know what I mean? So I think on skill-wise, like, Jacoby is an all-around athlete. Like, I feel like he can get in there and manage games, but Garoppolo is better. He's a better choice, especially if you, again, made this big push like you're going to be a title contender with Deshaun Watson. I think you still need to do something to get wins, because you're going to lose your fan base again if you go back and make this move with Deshaun. You make your bet, you got to lay in it, but now they're like, got to scramble and do something. I think it makes total sense to have Garoppolo in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think, are you prepared to have a losing season in Cleveland with Jacoby Brissett just for Deshaun, or do you go all in and get a legit starting quarterback? Jimmy, I'll give him that. He is a starting quarterback. He's a playoff quarterback. You could bring that in and just see what happens. He's an upgrade from Baker. He's going to be healthy. He can run that offense. And their roster's pretty loaded. Their roster has the pieces around to compete. So do you want to roll the dice with Jacoby or Jimmy G? And I think you'd rather give up a second or third round pick to roll it with Jimmy.
Yeah, especially, Stefanski, while he's not from the Shanahan tree, he comes from that same style of offense. Let's run it down their throat. We have these two running backs that are probably, I don't want to get crazy, but I'll just say like top 15 running backs. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, they're good. Both of them are
probably
dynamic.
The best tandem in the league, maybe.
Yeah, and if not one of the best. Mm-hmm. So you have this awesome run game, and Jimmy G can. Here you go. You know what I mean?
That's his bread and butter. Turn around, hand it off.
Throw a slant when you need. Cool.
If you need him to hand the ball 40 times in a playoff game, he'll do that. He can win that for you. But I think it's a division that could be wide open right now. I mean, the Ravens weren't healthy last year. We'll see if they can bounce back this year. Lamar is still going through that contract dispute. We'll see if that's a distraction. Pittsburgh is in this weird zone where they either going to have Mitch Trubisky or a rookie or Mason Rudolph again. We'll see. And Chase Claypool apparently is the best receiver in the league.
He said he's top 3.
No, top 3.
Top 3. But not 2, not 3.
I seen a tweet that was like, does he mean top 3 receiver on his team? Because it's a toss up there too. But I don't know if I fully trust Pittsburgh yet with that offense. And we'll see if the Bengals could do it again. This is a team that was bottom of the league, straight to the top of the league, and we don't know if they're going to be consistent or if they're going to compete or if Joe Burrow is going to be able to duplicate what he did last year. So this is a year that Browns could make the playoffs if they played their cards right.
Yeah, and not even just Joe Burrow. It's like, do you really trust Zach Taylor to take you back? I don't know, man. But,
and this is another season that defenses have seen Zach Taylor's offense. They saw the pieces now that he's used and what he does with them. Like young coaches could get in that rut of, okay, now they game planned against me. They know what I'm going to do. How do I counter that? And not everyone could do it.
Yeah, I think Garoppolo's the answer. Let's get Garoppolo in Cleveland.
I hope he's the answer because I do not want him on this roster with Trey Lance.
Regardless, Jimmy is not going to be on this roster. But do you think... So, you know how people in the media throw out narratives for their own purposes, right? Did you see the I Am Athlete podcast clip that came out about Jimmy Garoppolo with Julian Edelman?
Yes, I did. He read the quote from Martellus Bennett.
Yeah. Basically, I don't want to cuss too much, but he called him the B word.
I'll drop it in right here. I'll drop in. Here's the clip of Julian Edelman reading the statement from Martellus Bennett on Jimmy G.
Going to jail Here's the quote from Bennett. Bro, we lost 2 games. One of them was because Jimmy Garoppolo was being a bitch. He decided not to play right before the game. Jacoby Brissett came out and played with a fucked up thumb and played his heart out. But Jimmy was being a bitch about it all. Bennett said, That's why you can't win with a bitch for a quarterback, first of all. That was the thing with him. He didn't want to come out and do anything because his agent was trying to protect his body or some shit like that. Which I can't fault him for that, but like, you should have made the decision on Thursday. Now it's Sunday. Quote from Martellus Bennett. But Jacoby broke it. He tore his ligaments in his thumb in the win against the week 3 team. And so we go into week 4, and, I guess, Jimmy was practicing and then, decided not to play. And Jacoby played with, no ligaments in his thumb, which you can't do that as a quarterback. You can't grip. And if it's your left, and a lot of guys got mad about it. I'm not gonna lie, I got mad about it. I sacrificed my body all day long. I was taking shots for this, numbing up that, ribs, broken ribs, shoulders, grade 3, hanging on by limbs just to play, And, I can understand why Marty thinks like that.
All right, so Julian seems like very casual about, I feel the same. I think all of them now are coming out that Jimmy wasn't fully respected in that locker room. And maybe he's different in San Francisco. Maybe he earned that respect. But there was the second season, was it, when Jimmy was here and he was up in the booth? And
taking notes. There
was people speculating that he could have played. And we know Jimmy's been off and on. It took Trey Lance being there for Jimmy to say, nah, I'll play through injury. And even then, he missed some games. So, I don't know. Maybe he's a different quarterback now. But I think the timing of that could hurt his trade value, maybe.
Yeah, and it's just so weird to hear these comments about Jimmy Garoppolo when in San Francisco you've heard nothing but glowing reviews from his teammates. Adrian Colbert was on Twitter Spaces like all this past summer talking about how everyone loves Jimmy and it's ride or die for Jimmy. Kittle has been singing his praises the entire time he's been here. So it's just weird to hear now that these stories are kind of bubbling up just as he's about to start throwing,
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna double down and say, like, people can change. I think Jimmy G is a different quarterback now than when he was in New England and maybe the first couple years in San Francisco. He showed us that he played through injury in the playoffs. He was pretty good in the playoffs up until that Rams game. I mean, he was a gamer. I mean, he really put it on the line. I think he earned respect. That's all everyone was saying, was Jimmy G really earned respect for the way he played through injury. So I think you can change as a quarterback, and maybe they did say before that it could have been a business decision for him not to play. Maybe this was a business decision for him to play.
Yeah. But I just think, again, super convenient that it happens right now as he's going to start ramping up to throw, and we're going to be looking to move in. I don't know. I think it's a calculated move by someone. I don't know which team is trying to buy on the low, but
are you throwing a conspiracy theory right now that the Browns are trying to lower Jimmy G's stock?
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Browns, or even if you're who's another quarterback in the team, if you're Carolina, don't you want to throw out an old ass story like this from Martellus Bennett, who isn't even in the league anymore, and be like, hey, you guys should talk about this. You know what I mean? Isn't that something that you'd want? Because then it lowers the perception of Jimmy G, and you could buy at, instead of the 2nd or 3rd round pick, which I don't think we're going to get, you instead are going to flip for like a 6th or 7th.
I mean, nothing is everything, but everything is something. So let's move on. Jimmy G is clearly on the outs in San Francisco. Trey Lance, I think, has solidified himself as the starter for this coming season. He went through camp, all the starting reps, because Jimmy G obviously wasn't there. We heard good things that he went like 16 for 18 one day at camp. He's throwing bombs to other receivers. And didn't he had like an extra week with the receivers, right?
Yeah, so he ended up, Kyle canceled the second week of mandatory OTAs. Trey Lance decided to stay and run through the route tree for the rest of the week. So not only showing his leadership abilities, but getting in that extra work.
Yeah, and all offseason he was down in, I believe, San Diego. He was at this that famous camp that has a bunch of quarterbacks, and he was working on his game. The 49ers gave him the game plan of what he needed to work on, and I think he's been working on it. I think he's showing that he could be the starting quarterback this coming season.
Yeah, I mean, his mechanics look a little tighter. I'm not a QB coach, so I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it doesn't look like trash. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's not looping it all the way down here anymore. It's more a little loopy, but not too looped.
So, I mean, and we knew he like in shorts and a t-shirt, a guy like Trey Lance is gonna zip it, and it's gonna look impressive. But what you're more looking for is just the reps and repetition. Look at when he got on the field with guys like Trent Sherfield, who he had just practice with. He looked amazing. You know what I mean? So now to run with the ones and get those that repetition and the timing, I'm pumped. I'm pumped to see him with Kittle. I'm pumped to see him with Juwan Jennings. No doubt I'm pumped to see him with Deebo. And I think sneaky Brandon Ayuk might be the best wide receiver on our team.
Yeah, I mean, I've been preaching that for a while now, that I think Ayuk is more talented than Deebo, but Deebo's obviously the better receiver, but I think Ayuk just has more raw talent. So if we can figure that out on how to use him and maybe even put him in the spot that Deebo was last season, I think he could be a major weapon for us. And Juwan Jennings is going to take a step forward too.
Yeah, and all this offseason, Brandon Ayuk has been calling for the deep ball. What did we not do these past few years? Throw the deep ball. What is Trey's best attribute? How strong his arm is. Let's go.
I'm ready for it. It's gonna
be nasty.
And I'm not trying to get too optimistic about this coming season. If we're not great this coming season, I just want Trey to play the whole season so that in the next year we're better for it.
But that's not the expectation. The expectation is this.
I'm trying to be realistic here.
This is a contender. This is hey, we need to make a deep playoff run here. I'm not saying I feel this way, but a lot of the fans are calling for that. If Jimmy G can do it, then you should. And that's really unfair, but this kid is so talented. I think everyone is just getting so excited and ready to roll. And I think everyone's imagination is running away with him. And let's see what happens on the field. But I think he has all the gifts that you need to succeed in this league.
So on the scale of second seasons, where do you think he falls between Pat Mahomes and Tua? Where does he fall on how well he's gonna do?
Man, are we rating it all right? So let's do
wins or stats. I think
let's just do wins. I think
team,
it doesn't matter how it looks. I think what matters at the end is wins.
Yeah, because Jimmy had some ugly games that we pulled out. I think for this to be a success in Trey Lance terms, I want us to have at least 9 wins. If we can make the last wildcard spot with 9 wins with Trey Lance, I feel good about how he did.
I feel 100% good. Yeah, I think wild card, and we need at least 1 playoff win.
Yeah, that puts him right up there, almost to where Jimmy G was last year. We did get to the NFC Championship with Jimmy, but I think there's times where we were winning despite Jimmy, not because of Jimmy.
Yeah.
So if Trey can be a plus and not a minus, that's just better for us in the long run.
Yeah. I'm excited, man. I think we've got something special here with Trey Lance. I'm excited to just see him build it out. I'm excited for Kyle to actually trust in Trey Lance and just hand him over the offense and just be like, let's go.
Well, we're gonna follow along training camp, and we're gonna be providing updates after the first week, after the second week. We're gonna be following the story and see how Trey Lance is actually developing, and then obviously that first preseason game is gonna tell us a lot. So we'll keep everyone updated on that end. There was also a story came out. I think it was Jeremy Fowler that said Deebo Samuel was still requesting his trade, even though he was at the mini camp, the mandatory camp, and it seems like he's along for the ride. He's there with the team. So haven't heard much from him other than this report. What do you take from that?
I just thought, it was pretty weird. I'm not going to say like Fowler was capping or anything, but it is within that dead time. Like, hey, there's not too many stories to talk about that are different. So maybe this is something from Deebo's camp to just kind of keep the fire along. Maybe the trade or the contract talks have died down a little bit. So just something to like, hey, we're here. Like, we don't have a deal yet. We want a deal. But I don't think necessarily it's a red flag that he wants to leave. I mean, we did see him at OTAs, and he looked like he was happy, and he's happy to be there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think this was just like Deebo's agent reaching out and being like, hey, this is still the narrative. We're still trying to get a contract, but I don't think it holds any weight, really. The Niners aren't going to trade him. Just bottom line. They're already like sunk their feet into the dirt. They're not budging. So now it's just a matter of, Deebo, are you going to agree to this contract or not? Because Terry signed his contract, and the market is starting to come back down to earth for receivers the longer Deebo waits. I think, Terry McLaurin signed his deal for 3 years, $71 million. And I think that's top 5 money, but to the bottom half of that top 5, I think he was like number 5. And it's not a 4 or 5 year, over $100 million deal. So as we wait longer and longer, I think the deal is getting worse for Deebo, especially if he gets hurt. So I think he needs to sign before preseason.
Yeah, I think his best bet is to be like, hey, you know what? I want to get this done. You want to get this done. Give me like 3 or 4 mil over AJ Brown, and we'll just call it a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just getting a little frustrating because the market has shown us where he falls and where the money should be at. And now we know the window, like, hey, you're in between this and this, Deebo. Like, how much farther off can we be now? Is it 1 mil, 2 mil? Because it can't be 10 mil at this point. Like, there's no way they're that far off.
No.
So they need to just sit down and get it done.
We've seen the track record of the 49ers, and usually they do deals during training camp. So I think they're just like, hey, business as usual. Like, we're just going to continue to do what we always do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them because they've let the world know, don't call about Deebo. We're not going to trade Deebo. And the longer it's been, like, no team even has the assets now, and no team has cap space. So I think that's a deal that's going to get done soon before the season starts, and no one's even going to worry about that after. No one's going to question if Deebo really loves this team or if he wants to be here. Once that deal's signed, all that goes away and it's all about ball.
Yep.
And we'll move on to someone that didn't sign back with the Niners. It actually took a while for this guy to get signed. Tartt went to the Eagles. I think it happened like 2 weeks ago. Wasn't it like a 1 year, $6 million deal, something like that?
I believe it was a 2 year, $13 million.
Okay. Yeah, 2 year, $13 million, which, I mean, that's pretty good for a guy that got no buzz in free agency, and pretty much the team let him walk. After that playoff game, they just let him go.
I think.
Are you surprised we didn't bring him back, or are you cool with that?
Again, I think it's just one of those things, like, not even the play necessarily, but it's like, hey, well, it did leave a bad taste in our mouth that we ended our season like this. But I think they think that they can upgrade, or they have like Hufanga there that's they want to roll the dice and see what he has. So I don't think 2 years, 13 mil was going to be like a make or break thing for the 49ers. They obviously chose to let him go. So, I mean, and this was a guy who had been on the team for like several years and was an integral part of the defense. So it sucks that he ends his career in this way, but I mean, I think we can more than make up for that production.
Yeah, just production aside, I think he really loved playing in the Bay. He loved playing for the Niners, and even on the way out, he did a heartfelt message to the Niners and the fans. So that was cool. I mean, I really liked him as a player, but on the field, the production wasn't great. He was always solid, but that was it, just solid. And we can't have Jimmy Ward, who doesn't get interceptions, who's more inside the box safety, and then Kwaski, who's supposed to be our cover guy, also not getting interceptions and not really making a lot of big plays. He would make a play to a game, a pass breakup, but I mean, it wasn't really like anything crazy that we can't replace with a younger guy. So I think the move makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I think it makes sense. And it's really weird to see that Jimmy Ward moved on so quickly. Like, that was his running mate pretty much his entire time. And during OTAs, he called himself and Hufanga the best tandem in the league.
Yeah, I seen that. Does that say more about Hufanga or Tartt? Like,
I think it speaks volumes about Jimmy Ward. I think Jimmy Ward's gonna make it. He's the leader on the team, and he's gonna be like, hey, whoever I'm with, it's ride or die, but we're 49ers, and this is the standard that we have. And so I think now that Jimmy has set this standard, Hufanga's got to rise to it, you know? And
so is that like solidify Hufanga as our other starting safety?
I think for now, I think he gets a leg up, but I don't know. There's still a lot of time left before the start of the season. Would you be surprised if we added anybody? If we, let's say traded for somebody, or let's take a look at like undrafted free agents.
Well, we did bring in like 2 undrafted free agents at safety who are doing great from what I hear.
Yeah.
They're looking good. I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys won the job. The Niners are a team that aren't afraid to put in undrafted rookies because they think whoever's playing the best right now is going to get the job. They don't care who, like where you came from, where you got drafted, or if you were drafted. But I think Hufanga does have this job not locked down, but he does have a head start. He had a year in the system. He made some highlight plays. He's just a team guy that people like. I think Kyle likes him. John Lynch likes him. I'd be surprised. I don't think we're going to trade for anyone. Our secondary is a wasteland of players that the 49ers did not want to pay more than they're worth.
That's true.
This is what we've been for the past 5-6 years, and this is what we're going to say. We're not going to put in money into our secondary. If someone gets cut and we could sign them for a cheap deal, yeah, I think we could do that. But we're not going to put in more than what we need to. These are a bunch of guys who were undrafted and who were late round draft picks. I mean, we do have a second round and a third round pick in the cornerback room, but there's no high level, high quality guys. It was a shock for the Niners to sign Javarius Ward.
Undrafted free agent.
But it was a shock for them to put in money like that on a corner. But if there's someone out there who gets cut, who the Niners are going to roll the dice on $2 million on, then yeah, we'll see. But I think our guys that are in-house are our guys for this year.
Yeah, man.
I mean, this is a team that rolled with Josh Norman for like a full season.
It was such a mistake.
And didn't we pick up like Darqueze Dennard for like 6 weeks? And
I think he's still on the roster.
Yeah, they brought him back. So, I mean, we're not going to trade for anyone. If we were going to make a splash, we would have just brought back Kwaski for that amount of money.
That's true. Yeah, and I think too, how you're saying they like Ufunga, not only because like he made those big plays down the stretch, but because he's such a like, yeah, I'll do it type of dude. He wants to be on the special teams. He wants to hit the field as much as possible. And I think when he showed up as a rover last year, he showed flashes. So, I mean, I'd be willing to roll the dice and just let's have him at it. Like,
Yeah, let's see what he could turn into. I mean, he's on a cheap contract. We'll have him for like the next 3-4 years and see if we can get him on another cheap contract after that and just keep it rolling. But he does fit what we want to do. Just a guy that can move around. I mean, we don't carry a lot of active players in our secondary during the season. So they really like guys that can play the nickel, play outside, play a safety, even come down to linebacker sometimes. And that's why I was kind of shocked that we didn't bring back K'Wan Williams, because he's perfect for that. But Jimmy Ward and Ufunga are those kind of guys that just plug and play any spot on the defense right there. So, I mean, maybe they see the next Jimmy Ward in him.
Yeah, and it really doesn't matter the back end of the defense because that D-line is rolling out nothing but Ferraris.
Nicky Bosa.
Nothing but Ferraris, baby.
Put the over. What's his sack number? Put the over.
Oh, so that D-line's going to be nasty, yeah. So,
yo, do you want to before we go, can we just talk about the D-line real quick, and can we look at the betting lines of Drake and Bosa?
I don't even know if it's up. We'll have to double check on that.
We're going to have to do that next week. We're going to have to look at the betting lines.
Hey, check it out. You made it all the way through this video. We really appreciate it. If you like this content, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and follow for more. And feel free to check out some of these videos and subscribe to it.